everyone. I'm Stanislav, and this is a video from Assertive Yield in which we're going to go through different trends and predictions that we have for 2023. Today, we will be talking about AI and how it affects publishers. We'll be talking about the green revolution that's happening on the programmatic space, the cookies, and how we are preparing for their depreciation home, what the threats are there, and what will happen. Will there be a single thing that will depreciate cookies? Then we are also planning on talking a bit more about Google and what's happening with the company on several different fronts that are affecting publishers and SSPs and the market as a whole. And we will end up with programmatic and what are the trends in there. I'm here with Nils Lind and James Jackson, and after a short audio, we'll be back to present ourselves and go on each different topic. Nils, you're the CEO of Assertive Yield. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Stan. So I have kind of like a background on the publishing side as well. Back in 2000, basically 14, 15, 16, 17, and so on, operating multiple basically online communities. So dealing with user-generated content a lot and monetizing that one. With a big focus on optimizing the user lifetime value, finding the balance between monetization, revenue, and the user experience.
Okay, that's nice. James, how about you?
Yeah, so obviously been in the industry for quite a while, going back to first really looking at the publisher side of advertising, the pre-programmatic days or early programmatic days. Then, from there, CPXI, now known as Digital Remedy, which was a more hybrid publisher advertising marketing company. And then some time at Freestar, obviously a big industry leader in the programmatic space, the header bidding space, really focused on a white glove service product with them. And then now here at Assertive Yield, really trying to help, position our products for the markets and the publishers that we want to really help to maximize their value.
And I'll share a couple of words about myself as well. I come from journalism background. I have worked at different at TV. I had some marketing experience, but for the past 8 or 9 years now, I've been mostly focused on how publishers can grow, how they monetize, and what are the best ways to produce journalism with money that comes from advertising. This has led me to explore more about programmatic. This has led me to explore more about the technical part of stuff, and I'm really happy to be part of Assertive Yield as somebody that helps our clients. So with that being out of the door, we can start with our first topic, which is called It's an AI World. And you've guessed it, we'll be talking about ChatGPT, but not only. So when it comes to AI, it's been all over the news recently, and it's not a new concept, and it's not something that we haven't expected. In the past several years, it's been working on by quite different teams across the globe, and we all knew that at some point it will come to it. However, ChatGPT has made headlines. It's changing several different industries, each changing the way we search for things. At least that's the statement that's been made by Microsoft, and it's been quickly followed by Google as well. It's changing why we generate content. Already websites like BuzzFeed saying that they're going to have AI generated content, although this is not something new again. It's happened even on previous version of ChatGPT on competitors like Jarvis. And it's also changing images, it's changing video, and it even in a form changes our product here to Assertive AI, which is heavily reliant on machine learning algorithms for some of its products. James, what do you think? Is AI gonna kill us? Should we say, hey, we are pledging ourselves to the AI, we will help you eradicate the human force, or at least the publishing space? Or is it something that's gonna help us in our day-to-day work?
Yeah. Okay. So, so I take, sort of a publisher-centric view here. I think, obviously we've seen, some of the experiments with AI before, and just machine-generated, text. I think that it's actually going to have kind of an inverse effect. I think that truly human-generated content is going to be at a premium. I think that if you've got good writers, if you've got good process as a publisher, I think you're going to be in a really good place, and leaning into that, you're going to have a really unique offering. And I think in the marketplace, that's really going to be valued. If I were a publisher today of original editorial content, I would definitely, or if I was an Elsevier or a technical publisher or any of those, I would definitely be blocking ChatGPT and all of the AI bots. They are learning from your content and returning no value for it. And I think that is, I think you're undermining your own market if you're allowing your content to be included in that. And I know a number of publishers who feel sort of the same way, that this was sort of done, and there wasn't really a way to block it. There isn't a clear standard for like getting rid of things in robots.txt. It wasn't rolled out, just kind of done. And all of a sudden, you don't even know 100% if you've got an article that's about, how to rig your sailboat, for whatever. And it's the number 1 article or the number 10 article on Google or whatever. That thing's been crawled. That information's been subsumed into the AI board, and you're getting nothing for it. And that is wrong at a certain level. I understand market efficiencies. I understand why, some people would really want this. I get it. But at the same time, I think that it's just, it's gonna end up having a niche in some rather mundane and technical things, but it's not going to take over the world, because ultimately it won't provide that much value to the end user, unless you're doing something very simple like how to boil spaghetti or something like that. Like in that place, maybe there is no, maybe there's no market anymore for the best, chicken recipe, but I very much think that the publishers should protect their content, that copyright should protect their content, and that these entities should not be allowed to exploit the open architecture of the web, to simply strip mine it and aggregate it and then call that.
To be fair, boiling spaghetti is not that easy task, and it can get quite complicated, especially if you wanted the right kind of al dente, which is Italian for I don't know. It's just good spaghetti, and it's hard to ask an Italian guy about it. I'd ask you the other question though. If you're working on the website and the news publisher, would you say it's better if we utilize ChatGPT to create more content for us so that we get more traffic, we are faster at doing what we're doing, and we also take care of some of the more mundane tasks, like let's take things a bit back in time. So years ago now, for what it seems, Microsoft partnered up with a company that called OntoText to create semantic publishing model, and that was 2010, and they did it for the Olympic Games. So basically what it did was it created a lot of content with who participated in each tournament, who won, what was their score and all of that. So it created articles based on that information. And these articles usually require a lot of manual work. And I'd say that even for assertive AI work, I won't go against fasting things up with a bit of AI. Probably I won't advise that just putting a lot of AI content out there, but it might make editorial work faster and more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt going to be a certain group of publishers out there who for different reasons leverage AI in certain situations to create, let's call it boilerplate content. Let's call it, this is, I think what the use case you suggested, that sort of makes sense to me. I'm the Olympics. I want to make sure that I have, an overview of each match, or each game or each event at the Olympics. And, I can auto generate that. But that's not exactly what ChatGPT is doing. Although it is generating text. I mean, they're working from a lot of contextual data about it, right? And so, I think it's a little bit of an apples and oranges situation. Again, I think there are probably some use cases where this is gonna, catch on. But I really do think that good content, human content, will end up at a premium. And I would not be surprised to see people, labeling their content as human generated content, handmade content. These are the authors, and that the provenance of the content you create becomes all that much more important.
Yes. Nils, do you believe that search engines would add meta structured data that says this is human generated content, this is AI content, and they're gonna penalize sites that don't utilize this? And how do you think that's gonna affect their algorithms? And how do you think that's gonna affect the publisher's traffic when it comes to it? I guess, but from a publishing standpoint, that's one of the other important things, how this is going to affect traffic, whether it's going to get monetized by it or worse.
So I think we will have to kind of separate what kind of content we're looking at. There's the kind of evergreen content that always works, that will still be fine in 2 or 3 or 5 years, for which all of these automatic generation of content is working perfectly well for, because the data doesn't really get outdated. And also it has the ability to actually learn from the data, try different variations of it, and figure out what kind of drives like a high engagement, what makes the article itself more interesting long term, as it can learn based on the behavior of people reading those articles. And then we have content that is more kind of real time, that is more like a reaction of recent events happening, for which all of this kind of automatic generation, for my piece of knowledge, doesn't really work too well with. So there still needs to be like the proper investigation journalism and otherwise to get the facts right. But as soon as we have the facts, the automatic generation of the content can come in and help formulate those into like a well-rounded article. but it doesn't kind of help or relieve a part of gathering those facts, getting all the references right, and so on. And so far, I also I haven't seen anything yet where like AI-generated content was able to call a lot of references or what kind of content pieces it used to generate that specific article. So I think like if we look like in this kind of evergreen space, maybe a bit also in the entertainment space, it can work incredibly well. But those are also kind of parts which have an advantage of the content optimizing itself over time, making itself more engaging to the user. But then with everything that is more real-time breaking news and other things, it will be a very difficult uphill battle for any kind of AI, but it can add a lot of value in terms of speeding up how quickly the content can be written, writing it clearly. So I think there can potentially be a positive shift towards journalism being able to spend a lot more time on basically gathering the facts, getting the references and everything, while the writing itself is going to be more done by automated generation, which would of course have the impact that the shift in the skills needed for those people would also slightly adapt more towards this kind of research part.
When it comes to editorial, I might add that there might be a couple more products on the market. And if it's not this year, it's ready, but they should come sooner. One of them would be an AI product that basically does proofreading. So if a journalist writes something, the AI tries to understand whether it's highly accurate, or whether it's not able to determine whether it's accurate or not, or whether it's inaccurate, poorly inaccurate, so that journalists are going to have this covered, and that may actually lead to better writing, even on the news type publishers. Then I guess the other product would be some form of actualization. So an AI can go through a piece of text that was written by a journalist yesterday and try to get the facts straight that are no longer true. But even not yesterday, but a year ago, if you open up an article that's a year ago, you don't know what is still relevant and what is not. But an AI can edit these parts, and it can still be shared, at least something added out. Still, there are a lot of concerns. We know that ChatGPT has shared information that has been only accessible through the paywall, and that's not cool. And I'm on James that there should be a way to block it out from robots.txt. And it's not only ChatGPT, it's also Jarvis. Jarvis is $1 billion company now. We have other companies that are doing this, and even the other companies that are working on their own models. Then we also have the image bucket, which we kind of forgot to mention, but it's also really relevant. We've seen AI-generated images from DALL-E that had Shutterstock logo on them, and this is also probably not the best way around. But as these are challenges, I think that in the upcoming years they will start settling down. I mean, Adobe already started selling AI-generated artwork, and they may use their own pool of images, and that may be make it a bit more regulated in a way, even though business regulated. And we also have one other concept that is Amazon Alexa. Okay, Google, don't trigger. Okay, Google, please. Don't trigger. I mean a podcast. And all that are the assistants, audio assistants, that were basically said to be doomed by the end of last year. I mean, Amazon did lost a lot of money in that project, and something that several years ago was the future. And as an example, we have WC in Barcelona. Everyone, the whole city was run out by Google and Amazon. could now have the chance to survive and get a better chance of monetizing and better chance of getting to it due to that. I'd say we can close that topic. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to point out, and you guys aren't in the US, but something you brought up that I think is important to know, like the AI fact checking or referencing, like being automated into a piece, like there's huge implications for that somebody's writing a piece and then running that through an AI engine that then generates a set of possible references or some kind of fact checking, like that. If somebody's writing politics, or if somebody's writing reviews or of products, consumer products or stuff like that. I mean, just crazy opportunity for all sorts of mayhem there, I think. And
I'm gonna ask for royalties for this one. Okay.
What is your thought about like all of this AI generated stuff in regards to cultures, and cultures more and more disappearing and turning more and more into like a global one? Is it like a big accelerator?
No, I haven't really looked heavily at the image generation stuff. I really, as I've read and I've focused and I've posted a little on LinkedIn about it stuff, I've really been focused on the editorial process. I do think that if I'm a graphic designer today, I think that, the idea that it's going to be, let's say we have an Adobe like we spoke about, and they have a big pool of, Shutterstock or open source, rights, royalty managed images that they work with. And I say, I'm writing an article about training dog. I can go into one of these image processing things and say, I want an image of a black lab on a leash, sitting in a position next to a person on a green grassy lawn with I don't know, Manolo Blahnik shoes, something like that, and boom, it'll produce that for me. And I do feel like that will, and it'll piece that together from stuff that it owns internally and give you that image. That's a service that I do see, some value for, that people would pay. That does not necessarily, they have that library. They already own all of that. That makes sense to me. Like as a product, I see that adding some value, but that's very different than them going out and crawling all the different car reviews for the 1987, Chevy Nova and aggregating that into, tell me about the Chevy Nova, tell me about the 87 Chevy Nova. That's a very different, sort of, nut to crack there.
I would say that we want the actual implication of what's gonna happen with this world when it comes to AI, until we also see a major technical revolution that may or may not come soon in the form of the quantum computer. We keep having, let's say, good news there if we're not working from a doomsday point of view. So when you combine these two, and I don't know if it's going to happen in 2023, but it's going to happen soon, and it's going to change a lot of things.
I would throw in at the end, there is sort of that group of people who are very concerned that real AI, when hooked up to quantum computing, is going to create a new consciousness, and that is actually, that's a pretty fearful thing. I mean, it is worth thinking about that, because, we have a track record as a species of sometimes, creating these great things, and then, oh my gosh, well, it's got all these downsides that we didn't think about. And those downsides have been pretty bad. If you look at, you look at the research that's beginning to show up on like what smartphones did to teenage girls and mental health and stuff like that, it's real. So we should tread lightly.